Howdy, how are you all? Today we're going to be talking about some manga that I've been reading recently. I used to do Manga Mondays on a weekly basis, and now I just don't have as much time to read that much manga, so I'm going to try to read a little bit throughout every month and then group them together for you guys for a monthly vlog. So today we're going to be talking about 4 different manga that fall into the shoujo, romance, and also fantasy categories, all the genres that I love the most. The first series we're going to be talking about is called Ima Koi. It was first released in 2019 and recently finished in 2023. I read 2 volumes of it, so I'm just going to give my first impressions and general thoughts on the story. The story starts with a girl named Misuzawa. She's taking the train one day, and as you know, Japanese trains tend to be very crowded. She gets groped by a guy, and her schoolmate, Yagyu, ends up saving her. She becomes so enamored by this incident that she kind of has a crush on Yagyu, and she decides to slowly get close to him. Because she's been such a shy person in the past, she makes it her sort of resolution to become more forward and honest with her feelings. And honestly, this made her such a refreshing character. I feel like in a lot of like high school or shoujo series, we see a lot of very shy, girly characters that are not in tune with their emotions. This girl really knows what she wants, and she knows how to get it. At the start, Yagyu is kind of interested in her because she decides to ask him out, like she takes the first step, and later on he does fall in love with her because her actions and her feelings are so genuine that they also move his heart. I find myself skimming manga pretty quickly, and the thing that stood out the most for me with this series is the emotional scenes. So there are panels that are more zoomed out, there are medium shots, and then there are close-up shots, usually reserved for very dramatic moments. And for the emotional moments that zoom in on Misuzawa or Yagyu, I really feel like the emotions and the angle and the facial expressions are really spot on. They nab my attention, and I can't help but stop to take a longer appreciation for that panel. I honestly feel like Misuzawa is way more interesting than Yagyu. She is like the epitome of what a young woman should aspire to be. She's positive, she's persistent, she's honest, she's really outright about her boundaries, and that's something that I really admire because I'm really bad at like asserting my boundaries. Even if she gets kind of pushed over a bit by Yagyu's sister because his sister is very protective over the brother, she ends up making an effort to get close to the sister, learn to take care of her, get close to her, and really understand her. If I was in her situation, I would have been like so frustrated, but she really has this like patient and enduring personality. One aspect that I liked about the characters is that there is a really endearing and genuine sort of touchiness between the main characters. I feel like for any sort of like romance manga and romance stories in general, we're often taking a lot of time to lead up to the big kiss. However, the characters kiss pretty early on, and the kissing becomes like a regular habit that they sort of do in every chapter, and I was pretty surprised at how often it came up. As well, Yagyu is very like touchy and affectionate. He does like head pats. He squeezes her cheeks, which is like so relatable because I get my cheeks squeezed a lot by my boyfriend, and he's always just kind of like there to make sure that she's okay. So I really like the sort of like touchy aspect of the romance. One of my favorite parts and highlights of the 2 volumes that I read was when Misuzawa went in for the kiss. So before, she was a little bit more passive, and Yagyu was the one who was like very nonchalant, very cool, but she initiates the kiss and it leaves him very flustered, and I just love how she turned the tables on him. Ima Koi is already finished, so if you want to read it on ebook or get your hands on the English translated volumes, it is very easy to acquire. The next series we're going to be talking about is called In the Name of the Mermaid Princess. It takes place in a fantasy kingdom where humans coexist with unhumans. In this world, unhumans are discriminated against, and there's this huge secret that the royal family is keeping, which is the fact that their princess is a mermaid. For some reason, their princess was born as an unhuman, and she actually has mermaid features and mermaid powers. So what the family tries to do is get her to like take a variety of medicines to suppress her magic and also turn her human by the time she is 16. Now this is a relatively new series, so I tried to read as much as I could, and I mainly just got through the first volume online. I really love this series because I think the setup is very interesting. The mermaid princess is quite sheltered at the beginning, and through meeting her royal tutor, she realizes that there's a lot more to unhumans than she knew before. Since she's been sequestered in the palace and secluded from people all her life, she's never been educated on anything outside court etiquette and family politics. She's supposed to marry a prince off of like a faraway kingdom to marry for political advantage, but of course she doesn't want to do that. And her inner struggle, which is set up very early on in the series, is related to her embracing her true self and also working towards creating a kingdom that will not have stigmas and prejudices against unhumans. So far, the series is relatively new. Volume 2 in English will be released in May, and then Volume 3 is going to be released in August. I think the art style is so freaking beautiful. The princess, the way she's drawn, her delicate and girly fairy-like features actually really remind me of Chi from Chobits. So there's a very like dreamy and otherworldly vibe to the princess main character. I didn't expect myself to be really hooked into this series, but I'm definitely going to be looking out for future releases. Okay, the next story we're going to be talking about is called I'm a Witch and My Crush Wants Me to Make a Love Potion. Based on how long the name is, I kind of had my suspicions, like maybe it's a light novel, and I was right. I came across the manga first, but it's actually based off of the original light novel by the same name, and it takes place in another fantasy world with a witch who is living in the woods and basically makes potions for a living. Her grandmother was also a witch, and witches have kind of special powers that make them a little bit different from like regular humans in the kingdom. One day she comes across a knight who stumbles into her cottage looking for a love potion. Now this witch, Rose, she's met the knight before. She sort of has an unrequited crush on him, and when he visits the witch cottage to ask for a love potion, her fantasies and daydreams of him sort of like shatter because she thinks that he wants a love potion for himself, but in fact it's actually for the princess of the kingdom and not actually himself. So he ends up visiting the cottage a couple of times to check on the status of the potion, the progress, how it's going, and eventually they test the potion together. I really enjoyed the way that the main couple progressed. Like, Rose is very closed off. She's very alone and very antisocial, and the knight just keeps bringing her food and feeding her and chatting with her until she opens up. So I think the dynamic is really cutesy. I did, however, struggle to like get through the panels quickly because I felt like there was just so much dialogue in every panel and every scene, but there wasn't that much movement because most of the scenes are taking place in Rose's cottage. So the panels, in my opinion, are pretty static, but there's like so much dialogue to absorb. The art style reminded me a little bit of The Earl and the Fairy, a very, very old manga series, but it just came up for me because it was also magic focused and romance focused. As for the dynamic between the characters, there's a lot of like push and pull because Rose will literally die whenever she feels like any emotions, and she has such an apprehension to getting close to people. There's a sort of like pining angst that comes up, and in one of the bonus chapters of the manga, you can actually read part of the light novel. And when I was reading the light novel, it was literally making me scream. It was giving me Wattpad fan fiction level kind of angst. I'm gonna like put the dialogue up here. You can definitely see how like the emotions that are written in the light novel, it was very hard to translate them over to the manga panels. There is a sort of like steamy romantic tension between the characters, but I definitely feel like the light novel descriptions give a lot more insight to the thoughts that they're feeling on the inside. And also, when I'm reading light novels or novels in general, my imagination has a stronger visual than the actual manga. So I'm just like fangirling, freaking out because we get like a full monologue of like what the knight is thinking when their faces are so close they're about to kiss. And in the manga, I feel like the narrative is more focused on Rose and her perspective. Okay, the last series I want to talk about is called Those Not So Sweet Boys. There are 7 volumes that were released between 2019 and 2022, and it's another high school series that follows a main character that ends up in a group of sort of troublemaker boys. Nanami is a girl that comes from a very difficult family background. her dad was never around. He got into a lot of debt and then he just sort of like left the family. So her mom works like crazy to pay off the money. And also Nanami is attending a high school on a full scholarship because of her family situation. She meets a bunch of boys that are pretty well off, so they're basically spoiled and rich, and they have the comfort to skip school whenever they want and cause a lot of trouble. Due to an accident at the beginning of the volume, Nanami ends up sort of being roped into being the babysitter for these boys. She gets close to them, she convinces them to go to school, she encourages them to participate in a lot of activities, and basically acts as their like school counselor to encourage them to be more positive in their school environment. And as she gets closer to the boys, she slowly starts to fall for one of them named Rei Ichijo. She had a really good meeting with Rei because initially when she had lost her wallet, he was the one who picked it up for her. So compared to other students in the school who have like a prejudice against these like rich delinquent troublemakers, she actually has a pretty grounded and realistic image of who these boys are. So she's able to look past their previous deeds and previous incidents and just try to like genuinely be friends with them. As you can probably expect from a high school slice of life romance, all of the typical school things in Japan appeared. There's a sports day, there is a school or group project, there is a school trip where they slowly all get together and create memories in their school days. And of course, a bit later on in the series, Nanami slowly realizes that she has feelings for Rei and wants to get even closer to him. There is a lot of dialogue, again, in sort of static panels because most of it takes place in the school. However, I really feel like the characters really shine and show off the mangaka's skill. The panels where we get like full character body shots or mid-body shots with very emotional expressions and faces, that's where we really see the art come through. So I definitely feel like the characters are holding the series together. Otherwise, there wouldn't be really much that's going on. It's the characters' interpersonal relationships and struggles that becomes a core focus in the plot. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's vlog about manga recommendations. I apologize if there were any like random noises in the background. There seems to be a lot going on in outside LA today. If you guys like this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and also leave your comments on what you thought on any of the series if you've encountered them before, and I will talk to you guys in my next video very soon. Bye!